Come with me as we turn this sourdough into art. While my oven was preheating, I put the dough in the fridge for about 30 minutes as it was preheating. I preheat my oven to 500 degrees with the Dutch oven inside. And while it's heating, that's when it's in the freezer, so it just gives me a little bit more time to score. I've dumped this out, and then I kind of dust off any Thai rice flour that was on the loaf. And then I sprayed it with water. And now this is a stencil here, and I sprayed that with water to help it stick to the bread. And now we're going around with Thai rice flour on the outside. And then we'll rub that in and put a little bit more of a second coating on there as well. And I'm kind of trying to rub it really close to the stencil so that I get the white all the way up to where my butterfly is going to be. And then once I get that good and rubbed in, I just kind of brush off anything remaining that's loose. Put a little bit more Thai rice flour on there to make sure we have a good coating. So anywhere that was missing, I added just a little more water and rice flour. Next, I'm taking a paintbrush that I just used for bread, and I've sprayed it with water, and I'm dipping it in, this is blue spirulina that's been mixed with Thai rice flour. So I still have the nice smooth effect of the rice flour, and it'll give me a little bit lighter blue. If you do straight blue spirulina, it's going to turn out black. So you don't want to do that if you want a blue look to it. And periodically I'll get my paintbrush a little bit wet again if I'm having troubles getting it to stick. I'm just trying to make sure I get it good and covered. And then once it's good and covered, we're going to go ahead and take the stencil off. And I just use my little scoring blade to kind of pick up the very edge of the stencil and pull it off. And you want to be just real slow and careful about that so you don't rip your stencil, because it's going to be easier to remove it if you don't. And there we have our butterfly. Next, I'm going to go ahead and score around the outside of the butterfly. And I'm only going about 1/8 of an inch deep, because this is going to be more of a decorative score than it is an expansion score. So we're just going around the outside. And my blade, when I cut it, had a little bit of a curve to it, so I'm trying to work in favor of the way the blade is curved. For the most part, it's pretty easy to go around the outside of this stencil until you get to the antennas. That's when we have a little bit of a problem. And it's just that it's more difficult because it's a fine score. So I usually do the easy part first and save the hard part for the very end. And then just going around this, you have to go around both sides of each antenna and try not to accidentally cut through the antenna, which is what makes it hard. So I go pretty slow on that part. And then I like to, on the points of the antenna, kind of slide the blade underneath and kind of pick them up and just make sure that I've cut all the way through. And here I'm just picking up the end of the antenna, making sure it's cut all the way through. because I don't want it to stick into the bread loaf itself in kind of a funky way. Then once we get that done, I put it into my Dutch oven. I lowered the temperature to 430 degrees and we baked it for 5 minutes. Now I'm scoring around the other part. So this is kind of like the 5-minute score. So again, I turned my oven down to 430 and baked for 5 minutes. Now I'm going around the edge and then I'm lifting each wing and kind of going underneath so that we can end up with like a 3-dimensional butterfly, if you will. And I'm really making sure we're going around the antennas here again and picking up the end of the antennas. That'll give them a little bit of a 3-dimensional effect as well. And then once we get that done, I'm sticking a little bit of just wadded up parchment paper underneath there so that the wings will continue to have a 3-dimensional effect as we bake it. And next we need an expansion score, so I'm going to just kind of do a little spiral around the edge. And my dough actually is a little bit, for just 5 minutes it got cooked pretty well, so it's a little more difficult to score than raw bread, but not hard really. So there we go. That's our spiral, and then there was kind of an empty space there, so I went ahead and scored that as well, just to make sure my bread doesn't crack as we finish baking it. And now I'm just putting a little wheat stock in to kind of fill up an empty space, and there we go. So 430 for 25 minutes, and then I took the lid off, baked it for 4 minutes with the lid off. And we are checking the temperature now. I like to make sure it's at least 200 degrees, and we're already there. So our bread's done. We're going to take it out and move it to the cooling rack. And once it's fully cooled, we'll take a look, and we seem to have some nice oven spring